Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. For more than 3 decades, NPR listeners knew Carl Kasell, who died earlier this week. He was the trusted morning edition newscaster and later the judge and scorekeeper on news quiz show Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. But his career began at a very early age as a pre-rock and roll DJ. In February 2006, St. Louis on the Air host Steve Potter talked with Carl Kasell and asked him how he went from being a DJ to doing news on NPR.
Back in 1965, I took the family. We moved to the Washington, D.C. area. I got a job at a station in Alexandria, Virginia, outside of Washington, and I was the morning DJ there. And about a year or so into my work, I had a chance to go part-time on the weekend to help supplement my salary, which I needed, at an all-news operation over in Arlington. And for a while, I worked at both stations. I worked at the musical station in Alexandria during the week, and on the weekends I did part-time work over in Arlington. Well, the job in Arlington eventually became full-time, so I was into news by then. And then I had a friend who was at NPR, this fledgling network, and one day he called me up and said that he needed a newscaster for part-time work on the weekends, and that led to a full-time job eventually.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that fledgling network. A lot of people may not remember that it sort of started out on shaky ground, and nobody really knew for sure if this was a thing that was going to catch on back in the beginning, right?
We had a few hundred listeners, I think. I had never heard of NPR when Jim called me. That was Jim Russell, by the way, who now produces Marketplace and all these other programs. But Jim called me and said, I work for NPR. I said, what's an NPR? He told me. So I took the job. And, yeah, we had maybe a couple hundred employees, if that, and maybe a couple of hundred listeners, if that. But it has grown so tremendously since then. I mean, we have a complete building there in Washington now with several hundred employees. We have studios all over the place. And, of course, we have become very, very well known, as you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, does the growth of NPR over the years in any way surprise you?
No. I was looking back then at how the sorry state of commercial radio, if I may say so, was beginning to get into. And I thought that NPR offered a fresh voice and a fresh sound. And it was a refuge for people looking for some good quality broadcasting. And we offered it, and we still do.
Yeah, and isn't that a trend that's continuing? I mean, commercial radio stations, newspapers, they're all losing, it seems to be, their share of the market and listenership and readership. And NPR is the exception to the rule.
Yep, we're gaining listeners, and we're expanding our news operation nowadays. Well, in the past few years, while the commercial networks were cutting their news bureaus overseas, we were adding news bureaus overseas, expanding our news coverage. Right now, I think the last report I heard, Morning Edition is the second most listened to radio program, period, in the United States. Biggest and most listened to program in public radio.
Well, Carl, some people have criticized NPR over the years for being liberally biased and so forth. What do you make of that, and what would be your response to that?
Most people who say that don't listen. They hear somebody say it's liberal, you shouldn't listen to it, so they don't listen to it. I have several friends who are diehard conservatives who listen every morning.
Right.
Newt Gingrich, who tried to, at one time, head us down the road to being privatized, if you remember, recently made a statement to the effect that it's hard to believe that people can make a turnaround. He says, but he listens to Morning Edition every morning when he goes to work. So the balance is there. Both sides like what we're doing. And for those who have problems, I say listen for a while. We think you'll like it.
Right. Hey, let's talk a little bit about your schedule. Don't you get up something like at 1 a.m.?
1 o'clock is when my alarm goes off. I've been doing this now for 26 years. It doesn't bother me. I look at it this way. You deal with it. You got a job to do, and you've got those crazy hours. Don't worry about it. Just do it. As a matter of fact, I have, for the most of my career, have worked the morning shift, and that's the time I like to work. So I have no problem with it. But I do get up at 1 o'clock, and my first newscast is 5 o'clock. We're talking about Eastern time here, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And my last one is at 11 o'clock, and I go home and take a nap in the afternoon, maybe 3 hours or so, and I'm up. I can spend the evening with my wife. We can go out to dinner or perhaps go to a movie, and I'm back in bed by 9:30 in the evening.
Wow.
And, get another nap.
Wow.
And I sleep a lot on the weekends.
Your schedule is really demanding, not just because of what you just told us, but in addition to hosting the news on Morning Edition, you also have been for, I guess, ever since the show started, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, been doing that on weekends, and that's out of Chicago, right? So you actually commute to Chicago once a week?
Yeah, I do, but this cuts back on my newscasting. I do that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Thursday morning I fly up to Chicago. We do the show that night, and then Friday morning I head back home. It's kind of a break, really, because I get up only 3 mornings a week at 1 o'clock rather than 5.
Mm-hmm. Does it seem hectic to you, or do you get some sort of energy out of doing that, I guess?
Not a bit, not hectic at all. To me, it's a break. I look at it as a long commute. Just getting that plane takes about an hour and a half to get there. And I go check into the hotel, and then we go to the offices of WBEZ, and we do a kind of run-through on the script and do the show that night. And everything's within walking distance, so I like it that way.
And I guess it's just a little bit of fun. Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. I mean, you're known for your limericks, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any off the cuff you want to share with us, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But it's been a fun project for me all along. Now, back in the late 90s, when the show was being developed, back in 1997, for example, many people, maybe you remember this, I don't know, but Monitor Radio had an early morning news program between 5 and 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And the Christian Science Monitor dropped their funding for it, so there was a gap there to be filled. So the company decided to see if we could attract listeners in that 1-hour segment between 5 and 6 by doing a program called Early Morning Edition, and I was asked to host it. And I says, I'll do it, but I'll keep my newscasting job too if you don't mind. So they agreed. Actually, I was getting up earlier than 1 o'clock in those days to go in and prepare for Early Morning Edition and then pick up doing the newscast at 6 o'clock for the rest of the morning. At the same time, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me was in its final stages of development, and we were doing run-throughs and practice sessions and that sort of thing. So I was really working on 3 shows at one time. Now, that was busy, but I enjoy every moment of it.
That was NPR newscaster and Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me judge and scorekeeper Carl Kasell, who died earlier this week, talking with St. Louis Public Radio host Steve Potter. But before we close, we'd like to bring you one last word from Carl Kasell. As Wait, Wait listeners know, the prize was a personal outgoing voicemail message recorded by Carl. St. Louis and Bob L. appeared on Wait, Wait in 2008, and this was his prize.
Hi, this is Carl Kasell from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me on National Public Radio, and I'm here to let you know that Bob can't answer your call right now. But in the meantime, let's play a round of Listener Limerick Challenge. Bob didn't answer his phone. What a creep. He might be ignoring you, or gone, or asleep. But hold on there, Jack. He'll call you right back. So leave your message right after the...
That was the voicemail message of Carl Kasell recorded for St. Louis and Bob L. Archive versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org/stlonair. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Thank you for listening. I'm Don Marsh.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.